The night was quiet, the street lamps glowing softly against the empty sidewalks. An old man sat hunched on the edge of the curb, his gray beard falling like a shadow over his chest. His hands trembled as he held them together for warmth. Beside him stood a little girl in a red dress, holding a small bowl of soup. Her eyes were too innocent for the scene around her. She didn't blink as she looked at him. "Eat this," she whispered, lifting the bowl with both hands. The man hesitated. His voice cracked. "Why would you share with me, child? You should eat." Before the girl could answer, a woman approached. She wore a long white skirt and carried another plate of food. Her apron told the truth. She was a worker from a small food stall nearby. She placed the second plate in the man's lap without saying a word. The girl glanced up at her, smiling softly. "Mom says everyone deserves to eat." The old man lowered his head. His eyes filled with something deeper than hunger, gratitude, pain, memory. He took the first bite slowly. The silence around them felt heavy. But not far away, a car waited at the edge of the street. Inside sat a young man staring through the glass. His face was sharp, his eyes restless. He had watched everything. The hum of the engine filled the air as he leaned closer to the window. Something about the girl and her mother caught his attention. Something that tugged at him, though he didn't yet know why. He clenched the wheel. For years he had lived surrounded by luxury. His name carried weight in the city, his company stronger than ever. But now, watching a poor child share her meal with a beggar, he felt something break inside him. He whispered to himself, "Why do I feel this way?" The little girl laughed suddenly, a sound so pure it sliced through the night. She touched the old man's hand, unafraid of his dirt, his roughness, his pain. From inside the car, the young man's heart tightened. He pressed his forehead against the glass. His world had always been contracts, meetings, numbers. But this moment unfolding on the street felt more alive than anything in his life. The mother looked up suddenly, noticing him. Their eyes met across the distance. Her gaze was calm, steady, almost challenging. He looked away, ashamed of being caught, but he didn't drive off. He stayed. The old man finished the food slowly, his hands shaking less now. He raised his head, his voice a whisper. "You gave me life tonight. I had nothing left. Not even hope," the little girl smiled. "You have us," her words struck deep. And the man in the car felt them too. That night, everything changed. The young man did not yet know it, but his life was about to collide with theirs in ways he never imagined. And he would discover that the girl in the red dress carried a truth powerful enough to shatter him. The young man gripped the wheel, still frozen by the words he had heard. "You have us." He repeated them in his head. Not because they were meant for him, but because they pierced him all the same. He had everything. Wealth, a name, a company that bowed at his command. Yet in that moment he felt hollow. The girl in the red dress pulled lightly on her mother's sleeve. The mother nodded, then bent down to gather the empty bowls. Their movements were simple, but there was grace in them. Grace that came not from money, but from giving. The old man struggled to rise. The mother steadied him with one hand. The girl took the other. For a moment, the three of them stood together under the streetlight, framed like a picture that would not leave his mind. Inside the car, his chest tightened. He whispered under his breath, "Why do I care?" He had seen charity before. He had sponsored events, written checks, shaken hands for the cameras, but none of it had stayed with him. This, however, felt different. Raw. Real. The mother glanced his way again. Their eyes met. This time he did not look away. There was no accusation in her gaze, only quiet strength. He lowered his window halfway, though he said nothing. He simply watched. The girl, noticing him, tilted her head curiously. Her eyes were wide, innocent, searching. She whispered something to her mother. The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile, but she shook her head as if to say, "Not tonight." The man exhaled sharply, started the engine, and finally pulled away. But as the city lights blurred past him, he realized he carried their faces with him, and the voice of the little girl still echoed in his mind. "You have us." He knew then his life had been missing something he could no longer ignore. The night stretched on, but his thoughts refused to quiet. The faces of the mother, the girl, and the old man stayed with him like shadows he could not escape. When dawn broke, he was still awake, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse. The silence felt heavier than usual. His wealth surrounded him, yet it gave him no comfort. At work, the boardroom buzzed with numbers, graphs, and projections. He sat at the head of the long polished table, his suit perfect, his posture sharp. But his mind drifted back to the streetlight. Back to the girl's voice. One of his directors asked for a decision. He answered quickly, coldly, then leaned back. The meeting went on, but inside he was far away. That evening, he found himself driving again without a destination. The city glowed under the fading sun. His hands guided the wheel back toward the same neighborhood. He told himself it was coincidence, yet his chest betrayed him with every beat, and then he saw them. The mother was standing outside the small stall, serving bowls of food to passing strangers. The girl ran beside her, laughing, carrying smaller bowls with both arms. The old man sat on a bench nearby, cleaner now, eating slowly. The scene was ordinary, but to him it was extraordinary. He parked without thinking. For minutes he simply sat watching them. His heart felt restless, his thoughts louder than the city noise. Finally he stepped out. His shoes clicked against the pavement. The girl noticed him first. Her laughter stopped, replaced by quiet curiosity. The mother's eyes followed, steady as before. She didn't move, didn't speak. He stood before them, unsure of what to say. For the first time in years, the powerful CEO felt stripped of words, and the silence between them carried more weight than anything he had ever known. The girl broke it first. She stepped closer, her small hands clutching the hem of her red dress. Her voice was soft, but it reached him clearly. "Are you hungry too?" The question struck deeper than she could have understood. He swallowed, his throat tight. For a man who owned skyscrapers, who dined in the most expensive restaurants, no one had ever asked him that. Not like this, not with such innocence. The mother placed a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder, but her eyes never left his. Calm, steady, almost protective. He cleared his throat. "No," he whispered, then paused. "Maybe I am, just not the way you think." For the first time, her expression softened. She handed him a bowl of food, simple and warm. No grand gesture, just kindness. He took it slowly, his hands almost shaking. He sat on the empty bench beside the old man, who looked at him with quiet recognition. For a few minutes, none of them spoke. They simply ate together under the dim streetlight. The taste was nothing special, yet it felt different. It grounded him. Reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. When the bowl was empty, he set it down and looked at the girl. "Thank you," he said. 2 words he rarely spoke, but now they carried the weight of everything inside him. The mother gave a small nod. The girl smiled. The old man leaned back, his face peaceful. For the first time in a long time, the young CEO didn't feel alone. And though he didn't yet know what the future would bring, he understood one thing. This night was not the end. It was the beginning of something that would change him forever.